editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, what I talk about all the time is change. I think that the most important thing for anybody in any business to understand is that everything is changing. Your consumer is changing. The environment that you are operating in is changing. And if you cannot embrace and accept that and understand the changing nature of your consumer, understand the changing consumer itself, then you are really in a lot of trouble. And Steve is an amazing representation of change. His story is one of change, going from one industry to the other, amazing success in hip-hop and then amazing success in advertising. And also your message is very much about how the consumer, the culture itself is changing and how brands need to either embrace that or fail. And Steve, I'd like to start by having you explain The Tanning of America, which is your book, and also a really important vision for how culture is changing and how the consumer is changing.
Okay, well, first of all, guys, good morning. Thank you for coming out. So I started as a record business executive, and I went into the advertising industry around 2001, 2002. And what I had seen early in the record business was that the measurements on who was consuming the music was completely broken from what the marketing of the record, who the record companies were marketing the music towards and who was actually consuming the music were completely two different audiences. There was not enough trailing data to actually express with any depth who was listening to the music and purchasing it, specifically hip-hop music. And hip-hop would get into places and areas around the country that the radio station wouldn't necessarily play it, but yet it'd be selling like a hockey stick growth. And we realized very early that there was this cultural underpinning, and people were finding music, whether there was this video channel called The Box, there were mixtapes that were circulating around, friends' recommendations, and they'd buy these albums. And I wanted to apply some of those early sort of lessons that I learned in music to advertising, because there was a gaping hole in the advertising business. The advertising business as a whole, they actually didn't know who they were marketing the products to. And they would do marketing campaigns that were hollow. They lacked soul. They lacked any cultural connection. They would do things like have fake guys rapping and have scenarios that weren't true. They'd put 4 white guys and 1 ambiguous black guy and say that's multicultural. And all of these types of things I felt easily could be hacked. Easily needed to be disrupted, and that's one of the reasons why I shifted industries.
Do you think part of that was because the advertising at the time was thinking about people in boxes? They were thinking about reaching the white people, reaching the black people.
Yeah. In fact, that's what media is built on. The media business has been built on that topic and that topic only. Segmentation, hyper-segmentation, right? Black 18 to 34, white 18 to 34, this religion, this race. None of these things have anything to do with anything. In fact, I think media has done a very good job for themselves in making money, but a very poor job in bringing people together through these segmentation studies. Like, who informed them? Look at this room today, right? There's much more shared values in this room around certain items and certain things like sports that have nothing to do with segmentation. But the media has built their business on segmentation. When I first started translation, I used to ask people all the time. We'd go into these rooms and I'm like, where's the black section on Facebook? And there is none, because there shouldn't be one on television either. And there shouldn't be one in magazines either. And there shouldn't be one in radio either. It's like all of these things are ridiculously poor in reflecting who we are and our values as people.
Backstage, you had told me that the word multicultural is an old word.
I used to sit in rooms. It's unfortunate, and any of the African Americans in this room who are in sports or in marketing, you go into these rooms and you hear the multicultural point of view, and it's like, what are you talking about? Isn't this room multicultural? There'd be all these definitions, like urban, like that's urban, like that meant black. That doesn't mean black. right? Urban is a measurement of space, density of people in a space, or, multicultural. Like, yeah, that meant it was like code for like black. No, it's not. It's like multicultural, like multiple cultures coming together. In fact, what I was telling you backstage, which I believe wholeheartedly, and if you bet this for the last 20 years, you'd be doing great, is if you are a brand and you are not leading with, you must lead with ethnic insights. Ethnic insights is popular culture. Understanding ethnic insights would lead you to popular culture. If you are not betting on ethnic insights and you are betting on what you believe is mass market culture, if there is such a thing, you are going really quick, really fast in the wrong direction. So understanding multicultural insights or ethnic insights is exactly where, if you're a brand, that should be your North Star. And constantly iterating, finding that ethnic insight should be where you grow your business.
So can we dive deeper into that? How do you, if you're working for a brand and you're like, you're right, you're absolutely right, I should be looking for ethnic insights. What's step one?
Have the people that work at your company look like the audience you're trying to sell a product to. Mm-hmm. That sounds like a good idea, right? You can't, what I'm seeing a lot is these companies saying, okay, yeah, let's do it. And then you look around the room and it's the same people with the same old program. How are you going to, you have to make a seismic shift. Change is hard, change is good. Change in today's society is happening faster than ever, right? So I read this quote that said, the world is moving really, the world is moving faster than it's ever been. It'll never be this slow again. And that's just the facts. So you have to change. And in order to make those changes, you have to have diversified thinking at the table. You need to hire more women. You need to hire African Americans. You need to hire Spanish. You need to hire Latinos. You need to hire people that look like the audience you want to serve, different age groups, and you must listen, which requires empathy, which is an extremely important ingredient in all of this, that you can't pull this off without empathy. You can't go in the room, put a bunch of people in the room, and basically treat them as like actors because you're just going to do what you want to do anyway. Empathy allows you to listen and understand their perspective. And it's those combined perspectives that is going to help you as an industry and as a business change.
You've, at Translation, produced some really iconic work. By the way, I'm Lovin' It came out of Translation, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. That blew my mind. That's like the biggest phrase in advertising. But also, I loved your Chris Paul, Cliff Paul stuff. Yeah. Really amazing range of messages, and yet often reaching similar audiences. What is the developmental process when you guys are sitting down and thinking about who you're reaching and how to speak to them? Yeah. We're talking about getting the right people in the room, right? But then the next step, I imagine, is really understanding who it is you're reaching and what kind of message is going to resonate.
Well, I'm going to go one step further.
Yeah.
When I first started in the business, I was working at Sony Music, and I made the soundtrack to the film Men in Black. I mean, a lot of people in this room were definitely too young. Like, you guys were like 7 and shit. And there's some people that was my age that was properly 25 at the time. And we sold 10 million albums of Will Smith's Men in Black. And that's a big number, hugely successful. What was actually more successful than the soundtrack itself was the glasses that Will Smith wore, the Ray-Ban wafers. And the glasses sold exceptionally well and did not, and got the carry of the movement around the film and the soundtrack. And it was when I realized, the music actually affects much more than just the music CDs itself. And it's all of those businesses around it that we do not partake in that we need to be much more mindful about. And that's when I started to basically dip my toe in getting an understanding of what the advertising business was all about, because we were essentially using music to advertise those glasses without getting paid for it. When I first got into full-fledged, jumped into the advertising business, the first brand I got that literally was the thing that changed my career. It's not McDonald's, and the Chris Paul and Cliff Paul stuff is great, but I was 31-year-old entrepreneur, nervous, changing industries, nervous, changing industries. I was 29 years old. I was the head of Interscope Records. Interscope Records is run by Jimmy Iovine. Jimmy Iovine is a legend. People usually don't leave legends. They work under those guys for years. I had done my time, and I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew there was much more that I could put out in the world if I wasn't in an office every day and wasn't contained to just the music business. And I took some of the learnings that I got from Will Smith and the Men in Black scenario, and I wanted to apply it to something I was an entrepreneur around. So I got up, invited to a meeting at Reebok, and there was a guy named Paul Fireman. Paul Fireman was the founder of Reebok, and Reebok at one point in the in the 80s, like 87, 88, was actually bigger than Nike. And by the time it came around in the 90s, it had lost its way, and Air Jordan took off and took Nike with it. And Paul had left the company, he'd come back, and around 2001, he had to get back in as CEO, and he'd done a pitch for advertising agency, and I came in. I'm in this pitch. I know nothing about advertising at all. But I'm listening to what the advertising industry is telling him, because they all want to win the business, the Grays and the J. Walter Thompsons and whoever the companies were at the time. And they're not telling him the truth. So I come in and I said, Paul, this is very important. If you think that there's a campaign that you can run to make kids believe that Reeboks are going to make you jump higher or run faster than Nikes, you're done. That ain't going to work. But let me tell you something. The same way you get up every morning and you put on a Croc belt and you make sure that your shoes match your belt, there's a kid who does that with a New Era hat, and he wants the shoes and the shoelace to match the brim of that hat. If we market to that business, we can build a business that'll dramatically change the industry, because Nike won't see that. I'm saying this at 31 years old. This is all I know. That led to an idea called the sound and rhythm of sport. The sound and rhythm of sport, the first commercial we had done is we did Jadakiss and Allen Iverson. And that dramatically changed the landscape of advertising in basketball. If you've seen the ad, it's one of the most memorable ads for me coming out of hip hop, because we made the sound out of a ball bouncing and sneakers screeching, and they would play that on mix shows. It would actually get played like a song. It was that powerful. Then that led to the S. Carter sneaker, the Jay-Z sneaker, which we sold 10,000 of those in an hour. And this is when no one thought a rapper could sell a sneaker. Now all rappers sell sneakers, right? That's 2001. Then we did the G units. Then we did the Pharrell ice creams, and we just took off, okay? That, to me, at the time, was extremely important in shaping where we are today. And that was really, when you talk about what cultural means and what authentic means, it's finding those true insights that are not marketing insights, that are not governed by some advertising agency nonsense. It's the true insight that will give a brand a seismic opportunity in the marketplace. Where's the white space, and how do we put tactics against finding and exposing that white space for our benefit? And that's what we had done for Reebok. A lot of other stuff that we did is fantastic, but that's probably the work I'm most proud of. And given the time in my career when I did that, I needed that confidence. Obviously, when you're a young entrepreneur, you want to win to get that confidence going. And that was sort of the momentum that led me where I am today. Yeah.
Did that serve as an important lesson when you started walking into other brands? You say, look, this is, if you can change your mindset, if you can start looking at your consumer differently, this is what happens. Yeah,
it's what I do to this day, and it's bumpy. A lot of people don't want to know the truth, if you ever figured that out. You know, they don't want to know the truth. They actually want you to reinforce what they already are doing. Most people in most jobs will do anything not to get fired. And if the truth aligns with doing something that may possibly get them fired, they're not doing it. My job is to tell the truth. And if I'm successful at it, then it's fine. But I am not going to try to find success in lying to these customers. Not me.
Let's talk a little bit more about sports advertising.
Yeah.
The thing I love about sports advertising is what an amazing range there is. You know, athletes can be presented as funny, as goofy, as inspiring, as serious, as fierce. What are you seeing in the world of sports marketing, and how do you think brands should be thinking about it and approaching the presentation of sports and athletes?
Well, there's a huge opportunity in sports marketing. Obviously, we all in this room who are involved in sports understand the advantage, given where technology is, of having a live event, which people want. They want to understand. They want to see it live. It's destination TV, and live sports is the only thing that really truly owns that. What I'm seeing here is two-sided. The sports marketers, the brands that are the official sponsors of the blah, 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 NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, are not using that power with enough creativity. There's some brands that do it really well. And, you know, you bring up State Farm and Chris Paul and Cliff Ball. That's great work. And Kia and Blake Griffith is great work. And you see some great work. And then you see work where it's just 100% reliant upon the audience going, oh my God, they're the official sponsor of the NBA. They must be important. That just doesn't matter at all, right? So utilizing that relationship, I think there's a lot of creative opportunity there that brands need to be much more willing to experiment and use that relationship and sponsorship to express themselves differently. And the creatives have to be able to create within that framework. That's one thing. Secondly, what I'm seeing is live sports has a huge opportunity to take off and grow dramatically. But if you look at the monopoly sports had, whether if you look at who's on season ticket sales or local sponsorship guys, and I'm just using that as an example, they've become so comfortable in the way the business has been that in order for the business to take off with the opportunity that it has, for it to be on par with the opportunity, they need to change out some of the people that they have within these organizations. They're not built for tomorrow. They were built for yesterday. And, the one thing we all have to do in life is, and you should all be measured by this, is did you take advantage of the opportunity that you have? That's all you really got, right? We are all going to get different opportunities from one another. Did you take advantage of the opportunity that you have, the opportunity that you've been blessed with? And in business, it's the same thing. If you're live sports right now, between technology and every platform wants to use live sports to show the virality of their platform and how they can drive contagion and how much they could, how wide their footprint is, great. Do you have the guys on the teams, in the leagues, that understand that opportunity well and can capitalize on it? Because that window isn't forever. That window is for now, right? And if you don't have the infrastructure that's thinking that way, then you're not going to take most advantage of that opportunity.
And the bigger that you get as an organization, I think the less risk you're going to, the more you're going to have convinced yourself that you figured it out and there's no need to change.
Well, sometimes you feel like that, right? And then, but the truth of the matter is that used to be the case. And then you look at Amazon's business, and that's not the case, right? Or any company that's trying to constantly do research and development and change and iterate and create new products in the marketplace, it's super important. It's just the way it is right now. And I know a lot of people wanted to go back to the way it was, but it is going to keep moving fast. And the only way, as I said earlier, to keep up with it is who you hire and having a sense of empathy, because this whole top-down management shit, where you're not listening to the people at different levels of the company because they're not at your level, that's a broken model.
we got a few minutes left. I want to make sure that we touch upon a documentary you're working on with LeBron James, because I think it'll be interesting here, which is the, and then if we have a minute after that, I'm going to take a question or two, so think on it. About student athletes and, frankly, whether it's time to pay them. Tell me about the documentary.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, I mean, we all know this in this room. There aren't student athletes. They're professionals. The amount of money, I'm sure there was a period of time where student athletes and getting a scholarship was the privilege that you got for being an athlete, and you were gifted athlete. That's fine. But now when you got $20 billion coming from here, and regional sports television deals coming from here, and the resale of uniforms and images and likenesses for video games, and you don't pay these guys, they get thrown out of school if they got a free tattoo. They can't afford you, a poor kid from Florida, and you can't afford, you got a scholarship to Alabama, and your parents can't afford to see you play live. Yet the school is making $20 billion, or you're a young athlete, you're forced to wear Nikes because they paid a coach, and your parents can't come to see you play. And if somebody buys a ticket, then you're ineligible. I mean, that's bullshit, right? That's obviously exploitation, and it needs to be course corrected. So the job of this documentary, and with Maverick Carter and LeBron James, is really to shine a light on the student athlete. What happens to these guys, when they don't make it pro and they have 7 knee surgeries and they can't walk? Who's paying for the surgery then, right? What happens to these guys? So really exploiting that. And what's amazing is when you interview some of the coaches, some of these D1 coaches, there's remorse. They knew these kids were getting scholarships and playing football 60 hours a week, and their major was physical education or some bullshit, just to be able to get a passing grade. And that if they don't go pro with the education that they receive, it's not much they can do with it on the outside world. It's not right. So hopefully we can get these guys paid and break the stigma, get these guys paid and drive the right conversation around it. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it. And having LeBron obviously be a part of it. I mean, he didn't go to college, and he has a clear perspective on why. And that also is, you'll see in October 2nd on the documentary on HBO.
All right, so
plug in right now.
I'm going to take. I'm going to take it back because we don't have that much time for a question, and I want to because the
we have all the time in the world, man.
All right, well,
everybody wants to talk.
Gonna double the session.
They like
here.
this conversation.
Y'all saying we're going to cancel everything else, do this for 8 hours. Because here's the thing: you understand messaging, you understand changing perceptions. That, what you just talked about, everybody in this room, I'm sure, agrees with you.
Yes.
But there are some very powerful people who don't agree with you. How do we change a conversation like that to actually make change?
Forget those guys, man. Those guys, that's the number one thing. Forget those people. Forget those ways, forget those people, forget that way of thought. That's the only way to start this. If I was to listen to the odds of what I'd be, I went to 5 colleges in 3 years and obviously didn't graduate, and was a guy left the music business going into advertising, and that wasn't supposed to work either. I don't listen to these types of things. And this is the right time for this conversation to happen, because everybody knows that it's wrong. And when you put a light on it, everybody starts to scatter. So what are the powerful guys going to say? No, it's fair? It's how? Why you make $20 billion and this kid can't afford for his parents to see him play live? That's fair? What are you talking about? You want to say that on camera, sir?
They've basically said it.
Well, when you see what they say now on camera, when you see what they say on camera now, it's a whole different, their tune has changed. And the coaches know it. You're going to pay Coach K $7 million, $8 million a year so he can make the kids wear the footwear of his choice as equipment, that's on top of his salary. That's how you get the kids to wear the shoes. You pay the coach. That's fair? Who's going to say that? Anyhow, it's going to be riveting. And it's definitely going to cause a lot of chatter. And that's the best news. That's the best thing that I feel like social media has done. It allows people to rally around things. And this is an opportunity when this topic comes up. And there's a lot of people who have these stories that are former athletes in college that thought they were going to go somewhere and they never had a chance for their voice to be heard. I believe that this moment that we're embarking on with this documentary will then open up that topic for everybody to come out and talk about their claims against the NCAA.
Steve, if we could have this conversation for 8 hours on this stage easily, but then I think we'll never be invited back. We are out of time. Everyone, Steve Stoute, thank you so much. Thanks. Great conversation. And then I think, am I tasked with just staying here and introducing our next speaker? I think I am. Yes, I get the thumbs up from the production manager. So everyone, please welcome my next conversation, which is with Tom Rogers. Tom is the